Alright, how's it going everyone? Kapinarmic here with another video after a month after I came back and then left again. But today we're doing another episode recap on the series finale actually of Gravity Falls Weirdmageddon Part 3. Season 2, Episode 20, premiering February 16, 2016. And as I just said, it's the end of the entire Gravity Falls series. I haven't actually done a video on Gravity Falls other than the video game, but none on the show itself, so it's kind of weird that the first video I actually make of Gravity Falls is about the end of Gravity Falls, but whatever, we're gonna move on to the recap right now. So, basically, as a quick synopsis of the episode, we leave off, obviously, where Part 2 ended. I'm not going to be really delving into Part 1 and 2 that much, mainly 3. 2 and 1 might bleed in a little bit, but whatever. We start off where Part 2 ended, where Dipper and Mabel meet Stan and all the survivors back at the Mystery Shack, and they find out, all these people are safe, and they actually decide to, team up all together and sort of construct some sort of thing to fight Bill and get Ford so they're able to defeat Bill because, Ford knows how to defeat Bill Cipher. They realized, they could do something with the house because it's protected from all the weirdness from the Weirdmageddon because of the protection spell they put on it from back in last Mabelcorn. Meanwhile, Ford is still trapped inside Bill's pyramid, and we're greeted by a really good piano sequence by Bill, and Bill tries to persuade Ford into telling him how to spread his Weirdmageddon outside of Gravity Falls. He tells him to join his band of freaks because, Ford has 6 fingers. I should probably say that this recap is obviously going to have spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode, if you haven't seen pretty much any of Season 2 of Gravity Falls, just don't watch this recap. There's definitely going to be some spoilers. So anyway, he tells him to join his band of freaks because he has 6 fingers, and he promises to give him the ultimate power. You'll have ultimate power if you just tell me how to spread my Weirdmageddon across the entire universe. And I kind of doubt that he would have truly delivered on that offer if Ford agreed. But, obviously Ford refuses to tell him how, and since Bill cannot just possess him at whim, Bill, the only way for him to get the answer out of him is if, Ford agrees and, the handshake and all that. So Bill decides to go through other means and begins to torture Ford in order to get the answer out of him. And now back at the shack, everyone is starting to build this giant robot using McGucket's blueprints, and Stan is still a bit upset, salty about having to rescue his brother because he's mad, it's like, I spent 30 years trying to save him and, he didn't even thank me, and now he brings across the end of the world and everyone thinks he's a hero somehow. So throughout the, first half of this, he is pretty upset, and I could kind of see why, but regardless, they finish building this giant, magnificent house robot, and they head over to Bill, and at this point, Bill is still torturing Ford, and then the robot appears in his presence, and then that's when Bill realizes that Ford actually deeply cares about Dipper and Mabel, so he figures, well, hey, I could get the answer out of them if I put their lives in danger, you wouldn't risk their lives for, So it's like, he goes over to the giant robot and he starts to fight it, and we get this, really cool fight sequence with, all these characters, all these recurring characters and past characters from past episodes, and they're all contributing in some way to help fight Bill, and obviously Bill can't, beat it immediately because it's protected by the weirdness barrier spell thing. And, the people fighting are able to distract Bill long enough for a group of, Dipper, Mabel, Stan, Pacifica, Wendy, Robbie, all these people to get into the pyramid and rescue Ford. And they rescue Ford via help of little Gideon, who, we see in Part 1 turning good, and he goes and tries to help Dipper get rid of Bill, but unfortunately Gideon has been captured and he's been forced to dance by Bill's command, and with Gideon's help he tells Dipper how to, free everyone from the person stone chair that Bill has constructed from all of the citizens of Gravity Falls, and in turn they're able to reunite with Ford as well. And after they're all reunited, Ford explains the whole Zodiac prophecy that's been sprinkled out throughout bits and pieces throughout the entire show, and that's the way to defeat Bill. And he draws the Zodiac, and all the different members, which are, different characters of the show, obviously, must, stand in a circle and hold hands in order for the whole prophecy Zodiac to work. And Stan is the last one to come in, and he's still super mad, and they get into him and Ford get into a little tussle, and by that time Bill has, defeated the robot and he's back, so they weren't able to use the Zodiac, and then Bill turns nearly everyone into these tapestry-like things so they won't be able to do anything about it, so, without all the members of the Zodiac they can't defeat Bill, all because, Ford and Stan got into their little fight because they're still really pissed at each other. And then once again, Bill threatens Ford, that he's gonna kill these kids if he doesn't give him what he wants. And then Dipper and Mabel are able to distract Bill via spray paint in the eye, and they get Bill to chase after them, giving Stan and Ford time to escape, but Bill traps them inside this, pyramid jail cells, and while he runs off to, capture Dipper and Mabel, and while he's chasing them, it gives, Stan and Ford some time to think and realize, all the mistakes that they've done, to each other as well as everyone else. And it has them pondering, is there really any way that, we can get out of this? Are we just doomed, or is there some way? Am I gonna have to give up my mind to Bill? And it's Stan offers his mind, which is actually very thoughtful of him, but unfortunately, there's nothing that Bill wants inside of Stan's mind. He doesn't know the secret or anything like that. So back to Mabel and Dipper. Unfortunately, Bill manages to capture them, and he takes them back to Ford for one last chance. It's if you don't tell me how to spread this Weirdmageddon, I am going to murder these children. And then finally Ford actually agrees. He's fine. I'll give you the secrets. I'll let you enter my mind. And they do the handshake, and then Bill enters inside of Ford's mind, except it's not Ford's mind, it's actually Stan's mind, because while Dipper and Mabel were being chased, that gave them time to, do the whole switcheroo of the clothing, and, now Bill is trapped in there, and Ford uses the memory eraser to erase Stan's memories, which in turn erases Bill from existence, which is the ultimate sacrifice on Stan's part. So, Ford erases Stan's memory, Bill is erased from existence, and the Weirdmageddon is no more, and Gravity Falls goes back to, quote, normal, unquote. And, unfortunately, the price Stan had to pay for his sacrifice, he can't remember anything, not even his own family, he saved the world, but doesn't remember any of it. But fortunately, Mabel is able to read Stan her summer memories scrapbook that she's kept throughout the series over her summer at Gravity Falls, and eventually his memory is restored, which is, great. And afterwards we have a really nice epilogue with, Dipper and Mabel's 13th birthday, and Seuss basically inheriting the Mystery Shack, and Stan and Ford finally going on that trip in the boat that, they were talking about since they were kids. And it's just, Mabel and Dipper, finally leaving to go back to California and everything. It's a really sweet and heartwarming epilogue. And yeah, that's basically the end of the series. It's they leave, they go back, summer is over, and pretty much everyone is happy again. Now to move on to, specifics, what I liked, what I disliked. I'm actually going to start with dislikes first, because the list is actually pretty dang short, and my likes list is pretty dang long. So the only negatives I have, I only have 3 negatives, really. The first 2 kind of go together, and that's with whole Gideon turning good. This is more of a part 1 problem. Gideon turning good in part 1, and Stan gaining his memory back in part 3. And both of them happen really quickly. Like, I'm not so much upset at the whole Gideon one, because, 22 minutes, kind of pressed for time. And same with, Stan getting his memory back. He pressed for time. It's near the end. But I feel like both of those just kind of happen. It's like I'm more so upset at Stan getting his memory back so quickly, because it's like you just hit us with bam, Stan can't even remember his own family, and then it's like maybe like a minute later he's like starting to remember, and it's like, oh, well, you kind of resolve that tension pretty dang quick. So that I have more of a problem with that. Gideon turning good, let me just say, I don't have a problem with either Gideon turning good or Stan regaining his memory. I think both of those are great. I think it's just, the time given for them to do such is pretty short. I'm honestly not sure how I would fix that. Well, I guess with Stan you could do somewhat of a montage, but then he wouldn't really have memory back by the time they left. But I mean, that could be fine, I guess. As long as he remembers his family, that's cool. Gideon, I don't know. It's not too big of a deal for Gideon. It's like it happens, so I'm just kind of like, whatever. It's still handled a lot better than I have seen with other shows with evil people becoming good for for frivolous reasons. But this one, the reasoning actually behind this one was actually pretty valid, and while it did feel a bit sporadic, overall it wasn't too bad, that whole transition. And with Stan, it's just I just kind of have to shrug it off, because there's just so many other good things in this that it's like it just kind of overshadows that main thing. Really the main thing I have wrong is the whole Stan thing, but even that isn't too terrible for me to completely say, this finale was horrible. No. The third thing, which isn't too big, but it's still noticeable. Blendon? What happened to Blendon? He's got, he sees all the time people freaking die, and he's like, oh, I gotta get the heck out of time dodge, and then we never see him again. That's literally it. So, I don't know what happened there. I don't know if I should actually even really care, because he wasn't really an important part of the story. I mean, he was the kind of he's the one who Bill possessed to kind of get the whole ball rolling, but as far as solving the whole Weirdmageddon problem, he hasn't really, he's not a necessary component. So I guess him going, coming and then going back, it's not that big of a deal. It's just kind of weird to leave it hanging. Weird to leave it hanging there. You know what I mean? It's not a huge problem. I just question as to why. Why'd you leave it off there, and what the heck happened? But those 3 are really the only negatives. They're really the only problems I have with this entire special. Everything else, oh my gosh, everything else was great. Like the story itself, the story was actually really on point. There was no filler pretty much at all in this entire story, and it had great pacing. There was something important always happening, and everything happened for a reason. Even Bill chasing after Dipper and Mabel, they got caught, but, if Bill never chased after Dipper and Mabel, then Stan and Ford would have never had time to, switch up their clothes to trick Bill. So it's like everything in the special happens for a reason, and it feels really, compact in a good way. It's a 44-minute special for a show that's used to doing, 22-minute episodes. So, you could have pulled a Truth or Square here and just come out with some horrible schlock with an immense amount of padding, but it didn't do that at all. And, every piece of the story felt like it needed to be there, or, it should be there. And it's just, props to the good storytelling and the good pacing of this finale. And I really also like how there are multiple characters and callbacks from previous episodes, all the way back to the beginning with the gnomes. Shmebialak is there, and it's just they all feel like they belong there. And I'm just gonna take a brief intermission here. There are people next door blasting music really loud, so I apologize if that shows up in the recording. There is literally nothing I could do about it. But all the characters coming together to stop this huge threat is like really cool, and they don't feel ham-fisted in. They really shine when they're fighting the giant robot against Bill, and then when it's time to just focus on the Pines family, it focuses on the Pines family. It's like the group does its job, and then it's gone. Once we don't need them, we won't use them. And I think that's like really, really good on the episode's part, incorporating all these characters and knowing when to properly use them. So props to it for that. The prophecy kind of coming together. Okay, mixed feelings on that, because the prophecy did come together. That whole Zodiac thing did happen. It was executed, but didn't actually do anything. But I don't know. I guess if the Zodiac didn't fail, then a different timeline of events might have occurred. So maybe it was indirectly a component of saving Gravity Falls. I don't know, but maybe I'm digging too deep. But then again, this is Gravity Falls. But oh my gosh. Then again, this is Gravity Falls, so I don't know. It doesn't really bother me all that much. It's just kind of a thing that's like, hey, this is kind of been a thing that's been hinted at throughout pretty much the entire series. And for it to come together here, yeah, it's cool, but for it to not really do anything at all, it's kind of But the thing is, it's overshadowed with, the whole Stan sacrifice thing, that it's like, I'm more than willing to forgive it because it's still so cool. And speaking of Stan's sacrifice, it's actually the next point I have on this document. Stan's sacrifice at the end of the episode was like really great. And a friend actually, Rapido, I always pronounce this wrong. It's the same person I mentioned in the freaking message received. Rapido Patter, Rapida, whatever, link is in the description. Actually brought my attention to this, how, Stan, because when Bill goes into Stan's mind, and Ford is doing the whole memory erase thing, and, there's fire all around. Apparently there's been, like, hints to Stan and fire all throughout the series that I haven't even noticed. I mean, I've probably seen it, but I, probably haven't even paid any mind to it. I didn't notice it at all, so the fact that even that has been foreshadowed for who knows how long is really impressive. And just, this part isn't in my notes, but I'm just thinking of this now. Just props to the show in general for overshadowing things like so freaking well. So it does it in that really clever way that it's like, when you're watching it for the first time, you don't necessarily notice it, or if you notice it, you're still not entirely sure what it means. But when your question is answered and then you go back to it, it's like, of course, it all makes so much sense now. So just The show has done really well in that and keeping the continuity pretty much down pat with that. So good on the show for its overshadowing properties. I feel like I've been saying good on the show and props to the show quite a bit in this recap. But I mean, it's doing a good job. It's doing the good job. And also Stan at the end say, guess I was finally good for something. It was, I don't know, it's just that line just feels, man. He feels like he finally, accomplished something worthwhile. And it's just, oh man, Stan. But we'll get into character development junk later. Another thing I like is that, it feels like a finale, There are shows that have finales that are just kind of like, okay, this is a thing. Or even worse, it's just like a normal episode. But that's usually, when you don't know. Or it's usually for a show that doesn't really matter when it comes to continuity. But, this obviously doesn't just feel like another episode. The stakes are much higher than any other episode. Everything is more grandiose and epic in this episode than any other one. It's the apocalypse. It's the freaking apocalypse. With this arch enemy that we've been seeing all throughout the show finally showcasing his true and ultimate power. So it feels like an ending. It's a gratifying ending episode to a series. And even though, moving on to the next point, even though there's a serious story, this whole part 3 in particular is pretty dang serious, there are still, bits of comic relief at the beginning, which they don't feel, out of place. Like, oh, come on, why'd you have to, it feels like it feels like it belongs at the beginning, and then gradually as the episode progresses, it gets more and more serious and emotional by the end, and the comic relief just happens less and less, and it happens in a very organic way, and it's paced very well to the point where it's it's seamless. It's literally seamless, and it's great. I'm glad they balanced out. They put, the necessary comic relief at the beginning, and then once they realize, hey, it's time to actually consider things and think about things, they just give you all plot, just straight up plot, and props counter +1. Next point. Oh my gosh. Just the things they got away with in Armageddon, Weirdmageddon, not just part 3, but in all 3 parts, and I guess really the series in general, but more so in Weirdmageddon. Just just the imagery in Weirdmageddon, when the giant robot, literally pulls out Bill Cipher's eye, and when in Weirdmageddon part 1, where Bill turns Pacifica's dad's face all weird, it looks really horrifying, and just the imagery and some of the things said, I'm pretty sure Bill mentioned killing children at least 3 times, and it's and you're kind of taken back, whoa, this is a Disney show, and it's really surprising to see something like this come out of Disney, to be approved by Disney. It's Disney given the go-ahead, because usually Disney Channel, more Disney Channel shows, or Disney XD or whatever, out of the 3, Disney, Nickelodeon, and Cartoon Network, Disney is definitely the more, I don't know, conservative of the 3. They're a lot more, they strive to be a lot more, well, I guess family friendly would be the blanket statement. So to see Bill Cipher reference, threatening to murder children if he doesn't get the answer to take over the universe, it's just it's really intriguing, and it's good. I'm not saying kids shouldn't be watching this, and what is the world coming to? No, I'm not. I'm saying it's just really surprising to see what Gravity Falls, and more specifically Weirdmageddon, was able to get away with dialogue-wise and imagery-wise. And speaking of imagery, on to the next point, the animation. Oh my gosh. The animation in this episode was so good. It was so good, especially basically anything involving Bill himself had really good animation, especially when Bill was dying. Let me just take joy out of someone's death, but oh my gosh, Bill's dying sequence it looks so good. Anything with Bill looks the entire episode looked phenomenal. Like, the entire Weirdmageddon arc looked great, and it was really good, really cinematic. It had really nice detail, like when Mabel landed and she got the hair out of her. It's like details like that, and it's just really good. But basically, any animation that involved Bill was a really huge highlight for me, and I love seeing Bill whenever he was on screen, because he would always be animated in such an expressive and intense way. And it's just the animation in general in this episode is so good, and the colors and the lighting used for mood are also on point. Like, the first thing I think of is the end, when Bill is dead, quote unquote, and everyone's saying their goodbyes, and everything has like this pinkish purplish hue, and it really takes you in, and it really makes you feel like this emotion. It's like, oh my gosh, the colors, going from like red and black to light pink and purple. It's like the colors are obviously they're used purposefully and with intent. They're used very well in this entire arc, especially part 3. And just the imagination behind this whole Weirdmageddon universe is unique in of itself. Obviously, I mean, it kind of has to be. It's Weirdmageddon, but it's like this weird limbo where it's like between creepy and also like not. I'm not sure how to describe it. It's like, it's disturbing, but at the same time, it's like not disturbing. This is a compliment, by the way, but I'm not sure how to put this into words. It's just the imagination behind. I haven't really seen an apocalypse situation like Weirdmageddon before. It's got like, I've seen scenarios like this before, but it's like there's something about the Weirdmageddon universe that's just like, it's got something to it that makes it feel different, and I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's got like a certain charm that makes it feel like disturbing, but also super enjoyable, and I really like that. That's all I can say. And Bill as a villain is really interesting. Well, of course, he's evil, but he's also kind of chill. He's humanized, if I guess I want to use layman's terms. It's like he's super powerful, but not like a stereotypical villain where their only trait is I want to rule the world. He actually kind of has a personality outside of that, but at the same time, he's not the polar opposite where something like, I don't know, Lord Hater from Wander Over Yonder, which, I mean, I love Lord Hater. I think he's hilarious, but it's like, villains in animation kind of seem to be either like super evil or like goofy evil, and it feels like with a lot of villains it's either one side of the spectrum or the other, and I feel like Bill is one of the few that has that really nice balance between the two. Like, he's menacing, but he's also like he's got human character. He's cocky, and he's sort of kind of casual when things are going his way, and he's like chill, like when they were having like that dance party inside the pyramid. It's like he has a personality outside of I want to rule the entire world. So once again, I'm gonna say the P word, props to Gravity Falls for that. And carrying on with Bill, I really like the way he was defeated. I said before that the whole Zodiac thing didn't bother me too much. I mean, if he was defeated with the Zodiac, that's cool too, but the way he was defeated, it was like, it was probable, it was possible, like, it made sense within the logic of the show. You know, it wasn't like something stupid, like the power of believing in yourself, or just all of a sudden pulling something, you know, out of your gravity hole at the end, like, hey, we can use this that has never been used ever at all throughout the entirety of the series. You know, it's the way Bill is defeated is it's compiled of elements that have been on the show before, you know, like entering someone's mind, and, you know, the whole memory eraser thing from the Blind Eye episode. You know, it's comprised of all these things that we've seen before, but at the same time it doesn't feel redundant. It feels more so satisfying to see all these things sort of come together to ultimately defeat this ultimate evil. Oh my gosh, this recap is going down the drain. But moving on, Ford and McGucket reuniting, and McGucket, you know, forgiving Ford is actually really cool, because it actually didn't occur to me until, you know, they saw each other again. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, McGucket kind of left after he saw what was in the portal, and they haven't seen each other since. So just, you know, them seeing each other now and, you know, making amends, meeting Bridges, that was really nice and heartwarming to see. Next point, that's all I've seen about that. Next point, character development. Oh my gosh. Jeez. The character development in this. Stan and Ford getting along, you know, finally forgiving each other for the wrongdoings they did to each other. And, you know, they're finally true loyal brothers now, and they're gonna go out to sea to do more weird stuff, just like back when they were babus. And it's like, it's great. And then, you know, Mabel accepting growing up, even though that's, you know, more so part 2 than part 3, it's still, you know, a part of the arc. And Dipper has actually gone through like a lot of mini character developments throughout the show. I think he's developed more than, actually, let me not say that, but he has had a lot of character developments throughout this series. So picking one isn't really possible. Either that, or maybe I'm stupid and don't remember a very prominent specific one, and I'm just drawing a blank. Gideon turning good, while it happened a bit fast and it was kind of rocky, I still think it was, you know, like I said, handled a lot better than other things I've seen from other shows. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. You know, it's fine that Gideon's turning good. That's great. You know, and a Stan feeling accomplished, you know, for actually doing something, you know, he's able to get back his brother. He was able to save his family, and, you know, he feels, you know, at peace. At peace? Yeah, he feels really at peace. So at peace that he decides to, you know, shut down the Mystery Shack, whereas Seuss ergo inherits. So now Seuss is now the proprietor of the Mystery Shack, and that is also really cool. Seuss gets a little thing for himself as well. And he's also working with his girlfriend. I believe that was his girlfriend, right? When he was presenting the whole founder statue, that was... I don't know, I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've seen Seuss and the Real Girl. I'm pretty sure that was her, right? But whatever. And the greatest character development in all, Bill dying. Top-notch character development. First, he was dead. Then he was alive again. Now he's dead again. That's deep character development if I've ever seen it. And moving on, we're coming down to the end here. All the endings were really heartwarming. Like all the things that I just said right now. You know, Dipper and Mabel's 13th birthday. You know, Stan and Ferd going out to sea. Seuss obtaining the Mystery Shack. I don't think anything happened to Wendy, actually. Her family's okay, and that's all that matters. You know, and Dipper and Mabel going back to Cali, all those things, and like all those goodbyes and all those, they just really tugged at your heartstrings, man. It's been a while since I've cared for characters on a show that much. And it's to the point where, you actually feel something when they're saying their goodbye. You feel like you're actually there, and you're saying goodbye to these characters, because in a way you actually are. It's the last episode. You are Dipper and Mabel. You are saying goodbye to everyone, literally. And it's just, it takes its time. And that's one advantage it had with, being a 44-minute special. It took its time with that epilogue, winding everything down, everyone saying their goodbyes, everyone, having their own small little victory in life, Dipper's little monologue at the end, it's like all of that, it took its time. If it was a half an hour episode, it probably would have been something dumb, like Dipper expositing for like 2 minutes about, well, everything turned out great. Seuss inherited the Mystery Shack, and Stan and Ferd are out at sea, and everything is great here in Cali. It would have been something dumb like that. But the fact that we actually get to experience it and, feel along with the characters is... I love that so much, and it's really great, and it's, oh my gosh, it really, it's a sad and happy ending at the same time, because, it's happy because everyone is okay, and everyone is cool now, but it's like, it's like when a relative comes for a while, and it's a relative you really like, and then eventually they gotta go, and it's like, no, don't go, because you love them so much, but, you have to say goodbye, because all good things come to an end. Insert cliche line here. It's great. I'm sorry. It's just a really nice, sweet ending, especially with those colors. Last thing, that open ending with that Bill statue, showing that statue of Bill, live action too. It was, I like that. It's an open ending, it gives possibilities to others. I mean, I know it's not coming back, 2 seasons and done, it's finalized. Alex is like, no, only 2 seasons, even though Disney pretty much, begged them for a 3rd season. That's why the episodes in season 2 aired so sporadically, because they really wanted to convince Alex for a 3rd season. He was like, no. And I ultimately respect that. I'd rather have 2 good seasons than have it to drag on for 5, and 3 of those 5 are terrible. You know what I mean? So it's like, do I want more Gravity Falls? Yes and no, because yes, because I love the show so much, and no, because if everything that needs to be done is done, then there's no reason to continue, and I'm content with what we got for these 4 years. 4 freaking years. It's a year hiatus between season 1 and 2, but whatever. I mean, that's the end of Gravity Falls. Forever. Overall, I think Gravity Falls was a great series. It was really a great series. It was definitely not like anything Disney had ever put out before. And, major props to, Alex Hirsch. Major props to the entire Gravity Falls crew for making it possible, to see all this and experience all this. And it's just, man, I can't really say anything much right now. It was just a really good show with characters you cared about and humor that was actually funny, and a really good story with a really good overarching plot and really good continuity. And I'm really glad that Gravity Falls was, able to be created, and I'm really glad to have experienced the entire series. And with that, I guess that's the end of the recap. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you guys in whatever the next video is that I'll make, which is most likely a animation recollection on Super Milk Chan. What's Super Milk Chan? Well, I guess you're gonna find out sometime next week if I get it done next week. I really hope I get it done next week. But hey, if you hate Gravity Falls, I actually know someone who hates Gravity Falls. If you absolutely positively hate it, well, hey, that's okay. After all, I'm just one opinion on the internet, and I'll see you guys later.